You know what? His tight end room isn't bad either. Kind of underrated, Matt.
Certainly overlooked when you look at all the gadgets and talent that the Buccaneers have across their entire offense. So, you got to include Baker, you got to include the running backs, which we talked about yesterday. The tight ends are an interesting group because, Cade Otton has been the Iron Man. He's been Robert Downey Jr. Of this team, but he has flashes and great moments too, like when he leapfrogged this Raiders defender in that home game later on in the season. And I think the biggest credit that the Bucs tight ends can get, whether it's Cade Otton, who certainly leads the way, Payne Durham, who I think stepped it up when Cade Otton was out for a little bit, and Devin Culp as well, is they do a lot of the little things well that help this team that probably go unnoticed, and you don't totally see the stats and stuff that you would want from the tight end. But, this isn't like the 49ers with George Kittle, or I know he's a little older now, but the Chiefs with Travis Kelce when Kelce was like the top target for Patrick Mahomes, or even Brock Bowers now with the Raiders. The Bucs offense isn't built to feed your tight end over and over and over because he's not your best passing attack, and that's totally fine. So I love how Cade Otton has improved, as a running back. As a blocker for the running back. In certain situations. I like how Payne Durham has become somewhat of a Cam Brate copy and when it comes to getting in the red zone, because he was scoring touchdowns in the red zone for this team. And Devin Culp may have the best speed out of all of the tight ends. So it's a unit that's not going to get the stats and the numbers, but a group that could end up being very important. Like I'm more intrigued, and I want Cade Otton to stay healthy and everything like that, but I'd be more intrigued to see what if Payne Durham got a little more playing time? What if Devin Culp got a little more playing time? Or, occasionally you go 3 tight ends. I know they go 12 from time to time with 2 tight ends, but, 11 is their kind of standard base offense.
Yeah.
What if you utilize these guys? Again, if it's a situation where a couple of them at wide receiver need a break or whatever the case may be. Like if Mike Evans is out for a series and it's Jalen McMillan and Trey Palmer, well, maybe you want to look at the tight ends a little bit more. So I love the physicality that Cade Otton brings, and I'm intrigued by the other 2 guys. And I know Keeft is technically a tight end, but he's more of a fullback and a special teams guy at this point.
And I think, too, if you go back and look, and I dropped Josh Capo's really good, insightful article on Charlie Heck into the chat, so you can check that out for yourself. But one of the things that Josh pointed out in his article was, all of a sudden, guess what happened? How did the Bucs adjust when Tristan Wirfs, the left tackle, was injured against the 49ers and missed the rest of that game? Justin School filled in. And then School got the start the week after the bye week against the Giants up in New York. And what did the Buccaneers do? Well, they used a lot more 12 personnel, Matt. They always had a tight end on that left tackle side to help with the chips and help Justin School protect Baker Mayfield's blind side. You know what? Wouldn't be surprised at all if Josh Grizzard took some notes and said, I'm going to go back and do what my predecessor Liam Cohen did and use the tight ends a lot more. And like Cade Otton, Payne Durham has really stepped up and gotten stronger. He's been a better blocker and certainly was a better receiver last year. Caught his first 2 touchdowns down the stretch, really kind of erupted in that Panthers game. And I'm intrigued to see how he's going to do. We think Cade Otton is in line for a contract extension, and that might happen in training camp. One of the guys that we kind of skipped over a little bit, we'll get back around to. Matter of fact, we're going to end the show with some Luke Goedeke. How about that? We didn't really mention Luke Goedeke, but we're going to end the show with Luke Goedeke. But like Luke Goedeke, probably in line for a contract extension that will probably lock in Payne Durham as the number 2 guy for a while, with Otton sticking around as the number 1. But then you have to kind of wonder about Devin Culp. This guy is sneaky good. He's sneaky fast. And like Payne Durham in that Panthers game when Cade Otton was out, Culp really stepped in, and he averaged 17 yards a catch, which is not a surprise. He was the fastest tight end coming out of the combine. Took him a while to really adjust to getting plays called in the huddle and having to kind of go through the motions of leaving the huddle, kind of looking at the defensive front and processing all that information. It was just different at Washington, where like a lot of college programs. Oregon's one of those where they just kind of hold up the cards and you read the card at the line of scrimmage and they know what to do. So yeah, I think that I'm excited to see how this tight end 2 battle takes place between Payne Durham and Devin Culp this year in training camp.
Yeah, we understand what we're getting with Cade Otton, but him aside, I kind of like the 1-2 punch that we saw briefly of Payne Durham
Me too.
and Devin Culp, because Durham is a little bit more of your inline tight end lineup right next to the offensive tackle. Yeah, Culp of personality. I like using that one a lot. But Durham can line up, kind of smash heads a little bit blocking, and I think he can be a good, third down tight end and red zone tight end, like I talked about before. But if you want chunk plays and 15-yard receptions and maybe some yards after the catch, that's where Devin Culp comes in.
Right.
Not much of a physical blocking type of guy. Didn't do that a ton at Washington. But he can go and sprint down the field, get open, and maybe take advantage against the linebackers that he's going up against in certain situations. So with the talent you have at wide receiver, again, you're not going to see a lot of 12 personnel, 13 personnel and stuff like that. But I wouldn't mind sprinkled in here and there. Again, if you're going to rely on the run game a little bit more with Tristan Wirfs out, throw in a couple of situations where maybe Cade Otton and Payne Durham are lined up on the line of scrimmage, but Devin Culp is lined out, with some of the wide receivers or whatever the case may be.
Yeah.
Don't be afraid to utilize these guys. Again, they're not going to have crazy 125-yard games with 2 touchdowns and stuff where, Mike Evans, you can get that every other game. Maybe you see it like one game a season, but these guys can help out in certain little spots, certainly with Cade Otton, but with Payne Durham and Devin Culp as well. It's a very well-rounded group that is never going to get the headlines, but are certainly important to this team.
Sometimes you get the silver lining when an injury happens. And I think the silver lining for both Payne Durham and Devin Culp was getting to be featured more in the passing game. And really for Devin Culp was getting on the field.
Yeah.
Because O'Keefe had that number 3 role at tight end last year because of special teams. He's a very good special teamer. Don't really care to see him much on offense because he doesn't do much. He's an okay blocker and he's not a receiver.
Can't catch. No.
Right. But with Culp and Payne Durham, those last 2 games against the Panthers and the Saints, that really was a nice springboard, I think, for their 2025 training camp and season. And I'm really curious to see how yet another year in the offseason program benefits Payne Durham, and then also, too, what it will do for year 2 with Devin Culp. And not just that, but the consistency in this offense. Now, both of those guys, and Cade Otton and O'Keefe, and Tanner Towla, who's the perpetual training camp, guy that's body that sticks around on the practice squad. But I'm curious to see how the continuity and the consistency in this offense will benefit the entire tight end room. Justin Peel's done a really good job of developing this. It's a very underrated group.